telling you guys, we're going to have a bunch of houses on the market later this year, or early next year, I believe.
I think including some multifamilies with the landlord-tenant situation. I'm on my boards every day, and it's getting bad out there.
Well, that has happened, and we just had a buyer fall through for one because they didn't want to buy when they can't evict somebody.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
It's not a good landlord. It's not a good situation for landlords.
Not at all.
All right.
It really makes you.
So we're going to get started.
Sorry.
Yeah, it does. And every little thing that goes on, and we try to, stay out of politics and do all that kind of stuff, but every little thing that goes on affects everything else. And this isn't politics as much as a pandemic, and I don't think it matters who's making the call on this. Anybody would make that same call. But every little thing that goes on in society somehow affects us. And that reminds you that you need to educate your clients all the time. And that's why I love the newsletters and stuff like some of you are doing, to give people, what's going on in the market, what's going on where they see stuff about interest rates, and they see stuff and they don't understand. They don't understand why when the Fed drops to zero, like Tom was telling you guys a couple of weeks ago, and if you missed it, it's on our YouTube channel. When the Fed drops to zero, why do interest rates not drop automatically, right? How is it tied and how is it not tied? And the 10-year mortgage treasury yield and all that stuff, how does that stuff tie into the actual rates that the consumer is going to see? And we are professionals, right? We consider ourselves professionals. That's our job.
I like to think so.
Okay? Yeah, to educate them. That's our job, right? So we are, do we have value or not? Or we just, since we pay for the MLS, we can help them? Is that our value?
That's what some people think.
That's what some people think. But there's a reason for that, Judson. And the reason is a lot of realtors are not good. And their only use is that they pay for MLS. They went and spent the $350 for the class and the $58 for the test and the $1,200 for the MLS and the board. And that is what good you are.
Yeah, no, I actually, I got a phone call late last night that they had an agent doing that same exact house I just sold for full ask in 2 days. And they're like, it's 2 weeks later. Why am I still on the market? So, that's a perfect testament to that.
Well, guys, if you haven't seen it yet, it'll scare you. Go look how many people are doing it for nothing. 1%. Right? What good are you if you're doing nothing but just slapping something up on the market? Or if you're not educating people? If they don't understand, if Tammy is mine, I'm using Tammy because she's the opposite extreme of this, but if Tammy's my agent and she does nothing but just slaps it up, right? She doesn't educate me. She doesn't walk me through this. You're going to have two kinds of clients, and I'm going to transition here into what we're going to talk about today. You're going to have two kinds of clients. The one who has bought 17 investment houses and just wants you to find him something, right? Doesn't want you to really do anything, doesn't really need you for much. And your other kind is the opposite, the exact opposite. Because what we talk about all the time is this is the biggest decision people make in their lives. Whatever house they're buying next is their biggest one, right? They buy their first one, obviously it's huge for them. I don't care if it's $75,000, it's a huge deal, right? Then they move up, and the reason they're moving up is they're getting married or they're having kids or whatever, right? And that's the most money they've ever spent. And every house they buy every 5 to 7 years after that is going to be the most money they've ever spent. Does that make sense? Then, or the place they're going to raise their kids, or whatever it is, it's the most important thing they've ever done. Then one day they're going to downsize when they get older. Hopefully that'll be the 13th house you sold them, right? They're going to downsize when they get older, and that's going to be the last house they ever plan to live in. Is that important? Sure it is, right? So everybody who does this is either some people you run into and you can nod your heads if this happens. Somebody says, I just need you to find me something. I know what I'm doing. And it's as simple as finding them something, right? And they don't mind paying you because they don't know how it works and that the seller pays you anyway, and they're going to pay somebody anyway, and blah, 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 right? And they understand that. Then you have the complete other end of that, right? And a lot of times these people, unfortunately, on the other end of that, they think they know everything because they've watched a seminar, they've done something, right? Or maybe they haven't. They've just bought a house before, so they know how it all works. And your job, guys, is to educate them. And that's what we're going to get into with this buyer brokerage agreement. How many of you guys, I ask this all the time, but how many of you guys are using the buyer brokerage agreement? Those of you with video, show of hands or pipe up out there. Or you can use the chat if you want, if you haven't put on your makeup today. I did. Anybody use it? Anybody using buyer brokerage agreement?
I very rarely do.
Very rarely. Justin, what case would you use it?
If somebody's kind of wishy-washy and they're letting me know, I'm looking around, I'm talking to more than one agent, and I'm like, if you really want me to put my time and effort into you, I need some kind of commitment out of you. But
Right.
9 out of 10 times I don't, because if you're not happy with me, it's something I did, most likely not something on their end, so they shouldn't have to be stuck with me.
Is Judson a sheriff, BSO, or?
Yes, I am.
Sorry, I'm from South Florida. I said BSO, didn't I?
You're good. Pinellas County.
Very cool.
Outside of Tampa. Yep.
Very cool. Thanks for your service.
People are scared to have to waste Judson's time, but for the rest of you, so the rest of you, and that's not true, Judson. So let me tell you who's working with other people and who's talking to other realtors. Whether those are the 1 out of the 10 are the ones who tell you that. Those are the honest ones. You know who's doing it? 10 out of 10. Okay, they're looking at other stuff when you're not there. If you don't believe me, how many people have sent you a Zillow thing for something that they didn't even tell you they were looking at, right? Every client does that. They'll send you a Zillow one. If you don't find them something the first weekend, they're going to send you a Zillow, even though they told you, Judson, they wanted a 4.3 in St. Pete, and now they're sending you stuff in Dunedin that's a 3.2, right? I mean,
Yeah.
People do crazy stuff, right? So that is the most common thing, and they're going to tell you that, but you're going to get the phone call. And how many of you guys have gotten this phone call? And again, nod your head or hold your hand up if you've gotten this phone call. That they thank you very much, Tammy, for all the work you did, but I'm sorry we wasted your time, but we found something on our own. They didn't find anything on their own. They bought something with my sign on it. Okay. They bought something with Malvis's sign on it. They contacted somebody else because they saw this great thing, and you didn't answer the phone because you were asleep at 11:30 at night. And so they called somebody else, right? That's what happens. So the buyer brokerage agreement is about that, but it is not about tying them down. It is about showing them the services that you're going to give them, and it's about selling yourself to them. And so I'm going to, this is always a little bit of a challenge for me, but I'm going to share screen with you guys, and we're going to go over an agreement. All right. Yeah. So this is one that our fake agent Jane Smith did. All right. So where in the process should you present this? Does anybody know where in the process I should present this?
Before we show them a property.
Correct. Yes. So I had yesterday one of our agents ask me about a procuring cause situation. She came across a buyer who, and they wanted to see a couple of new houses. And she showed them a couple of new houses. Then they didn't really care for that. I don't know why, the price or whatever it was. And they wanted to go back and see a house that they had seen before with another realtor. So now they mentioned another realtor. And so she did, as she should have, did you sign anything? And they said no. And the house they wanted to see had been shown to them by another realtor. By the time she contacted me, they were already, she'd already presented the offer for this new house. Who was a procuring cause?
The one that presented the offer.
Well, first of all, yes. There is no procuring cause yet because there's no deal yet. But the procuring cause will be the one who you have two factors: showing the property and coming to an agreement, presenting the contract, presenting an approved contract. Okay. So if Daryl presents a contract that's not approved, and then John goes the next day, or not the next day, but let's say 2 weeks later, and presents a contract with the same buyer, but it does get approved, who's the procuring cause? John was, right? Because John did whatever he needed to do. He talked to that buyer and got them, sold them on the house enough to make whatever terms were agreeable to the seller, right? Because Daryl was not a procuring cause. Daryl didn't get a deal, and John did. What happens in arbitration, and I can tell you from going with some of you people, not necessarily on this call, but I can tell you what happens is if the buyer will participate either in person, which I've seen, or by letter, which I've seen, that is usually the determining factor. I didn't feel comfortable with Daryl. John, I'd rather have worked with John. That's why I worked with John. Daryl wasn't returning my calls. Daryl told me that I shouldn't pay more for that house, so I didn't want to offer more. And then later, when we didn't get it, we told Daryl we should have offered more, and Daryl told us we were dumb. So we liked John better, right? So whatever it is that happened, they were more comfortable with John. So in this case, our agent would win the procuring cause, which I told her. There's also tons of things that can go wrong in the meantime. They don't take the offer, or the offer at some point the deal falls through, whatever. So not to worry about it. But also, the other party does not have a legitimate. If this person, which the person told her they'd rather work with her, when it comes down to it, that's what they honor. Okay, what the consumer want, who they want to work with. So what we want to talk about here is this. Now, what should our agent have done if they said, yes, we did sign something with the other agent? Anybody?
I'd say they would have to direct them back to that.
What do you guys
agent.
do if somebody says, you can direct them back to that agent, right? If they signed something with them and they showed them that house and everything else, of course you direct them back to that agent. But you should have found that out before. Our agent should have found out before about the other agent. But people don't always tell the truth either, right? The same in a relationship. Have you been seeing anybody else? Nope. So that's the way it works. So in this case, I created this document as a sample. The Martinez family, Jane is going to meet with them to show them houses. Jane has already discussed with them all of these things up front, right? She's showing up with one that's already been filled out, which means she didn't sit down with them and fill it out. She's already discussed them. She made notes. She remembers about their conversation because Jane cares. And what this first page does is it shows the other party, the buyers, that you care, right? Who wants to work? People don't care what you know until they know that you care. Nobody wants to work with you if you don't care about them. That we have a bad enough reputation as people who are just in it for the commission. The NAR statistic, less than 30% of home buyers within 3 years after buying, can remember their agent's name. That means Daryl did not do a good job following up if I can't remember his name 3 years later. Okay? Daryl, if I never hear from Daryl again after he picks up his $10,000 check, which I saw very clearly on my HUD, if I never hear from him again, what do I think of Daryl? What's Daryl in it for? Did Daryl care about me, or did he care about that $10,000 check?
$10,000.
Daryl wants the money, right? So what do I think of real estate agents in general? Because of Daryl, or because of because of a different person who was a complete hack at this industry and only did care about the $10,000? If I dealt with them on my first house, somebody I never heard back again, of course, they only made $4,000, but I never heard back from them again. What do I think about real estate agents? I guess I need one, right? Or maybe I don't. What's this ad I hear on Sirius XM? I hear an ad that I don't have to use a real estate agent. That sounds awesome, because they're just in it for the money, right? So that's what we're dealing with, guys. So let's go through here and watch what Jane did. She's very bright, and watch what she did when she met with these people. Okay. They're looking for a single family residence. So guys, you can, if you guys want this, I'll send it to you, but this is a typical one. Okay. They're looking for a single family residence. They're looking for a house, right? They didn't want a townhouse. They didn't want a condo. They're looking for a house. Longwood, Altamont Springs, Apopka, but only in the Seminole County part, right? What does that tell them I'm listening? Am I listening to them or not, right? They don't want to be in the Orange County part. Why, without reading any further, why do you think they want to be in the Seminole County part?
Schools.
Yep, right? So they want to be in the Seminole County part of that. Do you think they have kids probably then? Probably young kids, right? Of course. Their price range is $325,000 to $350,000. They're working with ABC Mortgage. That's completely made up. Up to $350,000 with 10% down. Okay, that's what they're looking to buy. That they're pre-approved for that. Okay. And that's what they're happy with. And I listened to them and I saw their pre-approval, right? Preferred items and conditions, or preferred terms and conditions. This is where I'm going to put that I listened to them. If we had a contingent sale because they're moving from another house or something like that, this is where you would put that. But what I really want to put is schools are most important. Big backyard is a plus. Prefer a lot of, see how I'm going in order of important, a plus. They prefer, right? Prefer a lot of trees and a family-friendly neighborhood with a nice park within short walking distance because mama's pushing a stroller or something, right? Or they got to walk the kids down the street. Love to be able to make it a tree swing. You know, just the little stuff here where you listen to them, okay? They mentioned a tree swing. They'd love to be able to do that sometime. So we're putting that in here. Do you guys everybody understand that? This is where you're showing them that you listen to them. You've got the business part. Well, you can't see what I'm doing right now, but you got the business part up top. Then you've got the things that you listen to them and are most important to them, okay? Broker's obligations. Again, this is what I'm going to do for you. But all right, this is where you break into what you actually do as a buyer's agent, okay? Why do they need a buyer's agent? Why should they not just call off of the sign, right? This is where you educate them. This is where you educate them on all the stuff you're going to do for them. This is where you educate them on how real estate works. Give them a little insight. Who doesn't want inside information on something, right? All right, just so you guys know, a lot of people won't tell you this, but this is how real estate works, okay? The seller is paying this commission regardless of whether you have an agent or not, right? This is where you break them down. You give them behind the scenes of how it works. It's not really that behind the scenes to us, but it's behind the scenes to a lot of people that don't understand that. You know, it's not just rich people who can afford a realtor. It's anybody who buys anything, right? Because the other party is paying. Okay, so this is where you tell them that. What if there's a problem with the roof? What if there's a problem with this? Would you like to be represented by someone who only cares about you? Or do you want to be represented by the listing agent, Judson, who just really wants this deal to go down because he's getting both sides, right? Who do you want representing? So that's what you talk about here, stuff like that. And then you go through all the stuff I'm going to do, just so you know. Sure, there are other agents out there you could work with, but there's no house that Judson can show you that I can't. Okay, I'm a member of the local board of realtors. I'm a member of the Florida Association of Realtors, National Association of Realtors, and the MLS. Okay, so there's no other property that any other agent can show you that I can't. All right, so let's go on. The using professional knowledge and skills, determining buyers' financial capability and financing options, discuss property. Guys, remember how important this is to them. Don't feel like you're rushing through it like I'm rushing through it with you guys right now because you guys know this stuff. But go through this with them. They are making a huge financial decision. Make them comfortable with you. All right. You are the guardian of their, in this case, $350,000 that they're going to end up paying. I wouldn't go over this part necessarily, let the lender do that. They're going to end up paying $600,000 for this over 30 years, right? This is where you go through this with them. It is a huge financial situation that they're creating. And you need to go through this with them and let them know how much they can trust you and how important this is. And you're not just rushing through this to get your $10,000 and hit the streets. Okay. So that's what we're doing as we go through this part. All of our obligations, we're going to monitor deadlines and close any resulting transaction. How important is it to monitor your deadlines and make sure they don't lose their deposits and that they file their mortgage application on time, they get their appraisal on time, they're doing all this stuff and somebody's looking out for that. You guys ever work with lenders who aren't really on the ball?
Uh-huh.
You've seen that before? Have you guys ever saved a deal by being proactive about stuff like this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So have you guys ever lost a deal by not being proactive about stuff? Okay. We're a little less vocal on that one, but yes, we all have, right? So it happens. And you kick yourself because you thought you trusted the lender to do their job. You trusted somebody else to do their job and they didn't. Okay. Other buyers, the broker may work with other prospective buyers. If broker submits competing offers, if you guys have any questions about this stuff, read through it and let me know. Fair housing, of course, we're going to abide by the Fair Housing Act, all laws and ethics. Buyer does not warrant, or broker does not warrant or guarantee products or services provided by either party through broker at buyer's request, refers or recommends to buyer in connection with property acquisition. You guys, I hope, are providing at least 3 names for everything and asking them to Google more if they want them, right? I don't care if your best friend is a great inspector. you need to let them pick somebody on their own. All right. Just for the appearance of impropriety if something happens. Buyer agrees to cooperate with broker in accomplishing the objectives of this agreement, including conducting all negotiations and efforts to locate suitable property only through broker and referring to broker all inquiries of any kind from real estate licensees, property owners, or any other source. If buyer contacts or is contacted by a seller, this is their obligation. By a seller, real estate licensee who is working with a seller or views a property unaccompanied by broker, buyer will at first opportunity advise a seller real estate licensee that buyer is working with and representative exclusively by a broker. This is where they are obligated to tell people when you say, are you working with somebody? Yes. Did you sign anything? Yes. Right? This is where they're obligated to tell you that. Providing broker with accurate personal and financial information requested by broker in connection with ensuring buyer's ability to acquire a property. Buyer authorizes broker to run a credit check and verify buyer's credit information. We're not going to do that, but what we're asking them for is to not give us the runaround with making sure, these pre-approvals, pre-qualifications are based on what they told their lender, right? What they're doing is they're verifying that they're not wasting your time here. They're telling you that their obligation by signing this is that they're not wasting your time. Is that going to be 100% accurate or 100% foolproof? No, of course not. All right. So that's what they're telling you here, though. Anybody ever have that happen to them? Someone who fabricated stuff for their lender so they could get approved for more and then they weren't able to get qualified. Did that ever happen? Yes. Right. Being available to meet with broker at reasonable times for consultations and to view properties, of course, identifying and holding broker harmless against all losses, damages, costs, and expenses of any kind, including attorney's fees, and from liability to any person that broker incurs because of acting on buyer's behalf. So what happens when they lose their deposit by their fault, but they blame you, right? Does that ever happen to anybody? You ever lose someone lost their deposit and they tried to blame you? They tried to blame everybody. So it happens. Not asking or expecting to restrict the acquisition of property according to rates, of course, it's the law. But they're not asking you to do that. If they do ask you to do that, what do you do? Anybody? What do you do if your client asks you to discriminate?
I know.
Absolutely not.
What are you supposed to do?
You provide the resources for them to find out. Like if they ask you like the criminal activities in a neighborhood, you tell them to call the sheriff department.
You read the fair housing law.
That's one thing. You're talking about criminal. I'm talking about if they're asking you to restrict where they're looking based on someone's race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial.
Don't you read the fair housing law?
We don't just say no. We don't just say no, guys. We don't work with them. Okay? You guys understand that? All right. Consulting an appropriate professional for tax, legal, tax, environmental engineering, foreign. Of course, we're going to cover this as well because they're going to ask us all of these questions, and we're going to say, I'm not a legal expert. I'm not a tax attorney. I'm not an environmental expert. Please contact them with these questions. Right? I can help you find one. Okay. Here's 3 of them. All right. I don't mind you sending them directly to an attorney or to an accountant, but we're not these things, and we're always disclosing that we're not these things. Retainers. How much should a retainer fee be?
Nothing.
Yes, Malvis, you're correct. Do not take retainers. You have to keep them in a separate account. Broker has to keep them in a separate account. We're not doing that for $50 or $500 or whatever you're going to do here. We're not doing that. Please do not take a retainer. Please do not ask for a retainer. We will not take that as your broker.
I've seen a lot of agents take retainers for rentals. Other agents that I've worked with in the past or from other companies, they take retainers on rentals.
Really? Well,
yeah.
That's maybe if that's what their broker, that's all their broker does. Maybe. I don't know. I haven't seen that. But I get it because they're running around doing all kinds of stuff, and they probably always lose clients who are constantly, they're looking for something by the end of, look, today's the 9th. If I need something by October 1st and you don't call me back in 5 minutes, I'm calling somebody else. So I guess that's the deal. But We don't do that. Most brokers, I would imagine, don't. Not taking, $500 retainers, keeping them in a separate account, and all that stuff. I just recommend that you don't do it. And I believe if a buyer went after it, they probably would get it by saying, you broke one of these, and I'm going to scroll back up. You broke one of these by not being available at a particular time, or, they could get out of it somehow anyway. So it's just a headache. Does everybody understand that? Okay. Compensation. All right. Compensation is earned when, during the term of this agreement or any renewal or extension, buyer or any person acting on behalf of buyer contracts to acquire real property as specified in this agreement. Buyer will be responsible for paying broker the amount specified below, plus any applicable taxes will be credited with any amount which broker receives from a seller or a real estate licensee who's working with seller. Purchase or exchange. You can use the first one if you're not going to charge them the fee, or do the one that I just did, or 3% plus $350 of the total purchase price or other consideration for the acquired property to be paid at closing. All right.
Is that for the buyer, Ryan?
That's for the buyer. Yes. You're going to inform them, I am going to get an MLS offer of compensation when I sell you a property. If I find you something that's off market, I will have to charge you something because the seller's not going to pay. But remember, and I'm talking to the client here, so this is a quote. Remember when I told you earlier about how we get paid by the seller? If I find you something that's off market, then I'm going to have to charge you directly, but you'll get a better price because it's off market and you're finding something that's off market, right? So that's the only time I'll need to get paid by you guys. All right. Now, if you go find them a property that's a 1%er or a 2%er, can you do this still? Absolutely, right? You can. And what you tell them is, we can add toward the buyer's closing costs. Is this a closing cost? What they owe their realtor at closing? Yes, it is, Vivian. Yes, it is. If it is something that's owed at closing by contract, they owe it. So you can ask for it, but you don't do that unless you have asked for a seller concession. So instead of writing on a contract, trying to change the MLS offer of compensation on a contract because Malvis is offering 2% on a listing, and I present her an offer and I put on there, you're paying Ryan Langley at Florida Realty Investments 3%, which I cannot do, right? It's a violation of ethics. I can, however, ask for 1%. If I have a buyer brokerage agreement that says I get paid 3%, I can ask for a 1% seller concession toward my buyer's closing costs. That is a legal way around that. That is what the Florida
You're breaking up, Ryan.
their lawyers will tell you to do. I don't know if it's I don't know if Dalton's on here right now. Yeah, it says my internet's unstable. I don't know if Dalton's on here right now, but he has done this previously. A couple of you have done this previously, and I had actually one of our agents yesterday in Sarasota who's doing this as well. So
what if you don't get the closing costs paid for?
Then you work that with your buyer. I typically would just let the buyer off the hook, really. Yeah. I mean, you tried. The buyer tried, you tried. Typically, I'd let them off the hook. If you ever want to work with them again, I'd let them off the hook, right? So this isn't ironclad. Nothing in here is ironclad. They can get out of it any way they want. We're about to get to that here. So you can do the same thing. You use the same thing for a lease. Daryl, you talked about the lease thing. You can use the same paper for a lease and use all the same stuff. They still told you they wanted a house in Longwood or Seminole County to send their kids to school up there. They still told you all the same things that they told you. So now you're just looking for a lease instead. Okay. And you can charge your buyer. This is where you would definitely collect from your buyer or your lessee, because this is where you get a lot of runaround for not much money, right? But if they really want a nice house in Longwood or something, and you think you're going to get a $200 referral thing, this is where you say, look, I'm going to charge you guys $1,000 or $500 to do this. All right. So this is where you do that. Because I'm not running around for houses in Seminole County that go like wildfire for $200. So protection period. Buyer will pay broker's commission if within 60 days after termination date, buyer contracts to acquire any property which was called to buyer's attention by broker or any other person or found by buyer, or like this, or any other person or found by buyer during the term of this agreement. So any house in the world, pretty much. Buyer's obligation to pay broker's fee ceases upon buyer entering into a good faith exclusive buyer brokerage agreement with another broker after termination date. So what should you guys do? This is another reason to use this form. They used to have a buyer brokerage agreement with somebody at Watson, and that agent from Watson is going to try to claim them if you're out there showing them houses without a buyer brokerage agreement. Do you guys see where that happens on this form? Do you guys see where if you have this form with them and then they terminate and go work with somebody they called off the internet, and that dummy at some other brokerage drives them around and shows them houses, you still have claim if they're buying anything that you've sent them on an MLS auto search. You guys see that? That's where this form comes in for that too. So, and if they come work with you after they just, yeah, you know what, Vivian, I was working with John over at Watson, but I'll send them an email and terminate that agreement. Is that okay? Yeah, that's okay. And then you go show them houses without having one of these. Well, guess what? For up to 60 days, John can still claim them. All right. If you showed them a house and you find them something the first day, obviously it showed up on their auto search already that John's been sending them. And now you're going to be, you're working on John's deal. At least John will have a claim, and you're going to end up in arbitration. And a lot of times arbitration, you guys know what arbitration does a lot of times? Splits, right? That's the whole idea of arbitration. An arbitrary board of people arbitrarily chooses an arbitrary amount to give each person. Okay. Rarely do you have winners and losers. We have. The only time we've had absolute winners and absolute losers is when the buyer shows up and says, I did not want to work with Malvis. I wanted to work with Daryl. Okay. So, so that's that. Early termination. Buyer may terminate this agreement at any time by written notice to broker, but will remain responsible for paying broker's compensation if from the early termination date to the termination date plus protection period, if applicable. Buyer contracts to acquire any property which, prior to the early termination, was found by buyer or called to buyer's attention by broker or any other person. So if anybody called anything to their attention, broker may terminate this agreement anytime by written notice to buyer, in which event buyer will be released from all further obligations under this agreement. So if you fire a client, anybody ever fire a client? Show me a hand or not if you've ever fired a client, right? Then they're off the hook for everything. You can't fire them and then say, oh, you bought that house I showed you. Okay. So they are released from all further obligations. Dispute resolution. Any unresolvable dispute between buyer and broker will be mediated. If the settlement is not reached in mediation, the matter will be submitted to binding arbitration in accordance with the rule of the American Arbitration Association or mutually agreeable arbiter. So that's, you're back to arbitration with the buyer if there's an agreement here, but that's not going to be an issue. By that time, they've already told you they don't want to work with you, and they're going to win any kind of arbitration anyway. Special clauses. This one's a transaction broker. Again, we have 865 agents now or something, and about 500 of you are realtors. So you're going to run into other people's listings in our brokerage, or you may sell them your own listing, right? So you're going to run into that kind of stuff. You might get a listing the next week that's perfect for the Martinez family. Okay. So you're going to run into this stuff. Use the transaction broker form. There's nothing wrong with it. Okay. Broker will deal honestly and fairly, will account for all funds, skill, care, and diligence, blah, blah, blah. You're going to go back over this with them because now you're summing them back up with all of the great things that you're going to do. I would go back over with them, the house you're going to find them and all that stuff, and start talking about the house here. Special clause. Martinez family qualifies for the Jane Smith Frontline program and will receive a credit of 20% of broker's commission at closing. Yay. I like to put something positive here, something with some enthusiasm, something with some emotion that gets them fired up. If you're doing the money goes to the charity of their choice, I'd say something about that here. Who doesn't want to do that, right? So if you've talked to them about your charity of choice, which you would have talked to before you got to this part of the agreement, this is where you put that down. You write it with handwriting. If you've already done this, you write on top of it with handwriting and initial it, okay? And say, this is where the Martinez family is going to give 10% of my commission. We're going to write it in their name to the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation in memory of their nephew, Peter, okay? Whatever it is, right? So that's what you put here. And who doesn't sign this form after that? Okay? Who doesn't sign this form if they believe in you, they believe in all the things that you're going to do for them, they believe that you listen to them, and all they got to do is pay you money that you're going to get anyway. Right? Everybody got that? What really is their obligation? Their obligations here, look back at buyer's obligations. They're going to be a reasonable person, is all this says. They're going to work with you. They're going to show up at they're going to be available at reasonable times to view properties and for consultations. Right? They're going to hold you harmless if their AC guy blows up the AC, but it is the person that they chose. They're not going to sue you for it. That's all it says. Right? Anybody have any questions on that? Does anybody have any reason they can't use this?
I do.
And I know we can. Go ahead.
How do you do it? I always work so much on the fly. It's crazy, but it's always worked for me. You get these calls and you run show property, but they're usually my Zillow leads, and they work out. So how would you incorporate this into that type of methodology?
Okay. Let me get back to let me stop the screen sharing here. Okay, because I want to see your faces. Who asked that question? Is that Tammy?
Yeah.
Okay, so Tammy, I had, in that case, Jane had talked to them before, got all this information from them, and she showed up with a typed out one, right? I would carry them with me, okay? Carry them in your little folders. We've got Florida Realty investment folders, whatever you want to do, carry them in your little folders and fill them out right there with them as you're doing it, as you're listening to them and talking to them. I'd like to fill it out right there with them to show them what is going on here and that you're a professional and you take this seriously. Because if you meet with me, and I've got the most important, you guys ever meet with somebody and you're going over some important stuff and they don't take notes and you want to say, you might want to grab a pencil for this, right? You guys ever have that? You might want to write this down, right? You guys ever meet with that and you feel a little bit disrespected because either someone is, like if I'm doing this meeting and I'm on my phone or I'm not taking notes when you're telling me something important, this is the most important thing to these guys. Tammy, it is just another of your 100 sales a year that you do. It's just another one of those. But for them, it is their one buying thing for their life where they're going to raise their kids and they're going to get emotional about this. And I want you to write it down. Okay? I want you to appear, even though you might have the best memory in the world. You ever go with a group of 12 people to eat at a restaurant and the server doesn't write down your order?
Yeah.
How does that make you feel? Right? What are your chances they're going to get it right? Right? That's the same thing, right? They're telling you this very important, but I don't really care if they forget my mashed potatoes. I do care if you're showing me the wrong houses and you're going to waste my weekend. Okay? Right? Am I really working with the right person?
So
right?
would you have to fill that out on the front porch of a house before you walk in the house?
If that's where you're meeting them, yeah. I prefer to meet them somewhere first, but if that's where you're meeting them, yeah. Maybe you show them that one house and then you're not seeing another house until 2:30, so let's stop somewhere and grab something to drink. I mean, that happens all the time, right? How often do your showings line up perfectly? A lot of times you have 30 minutes to kill, right? Or somebody cancels a showing on you, just went under contract, sorry, might not want to show it today, or whatever, right? If you get a chance, do it. Before you go show them a house the next day, do it. I mean, it doesn't have to be before you show them one single house. But if you get done showing them 2 houses today and you're going to meet again next Tuesday or you're going to meet Sunday, let's go grab a coffee at Starbucks and go over this agreement. Okay? And my broker makes me get these agreements signed. I know I showed you guys a couple houses. I trust you guys, whatever. That's fine. That's perfectly fine. But here's what I want to tell you guys, give you a little behind the scenes look of how the business works and let you guys know how we do business. I think you guys will really enjoy it. And so you sit there and you write down with them all the stuff that they're saying. Guys, 90% of this is about what you're going to do for them. There's nothing to be afraid of. This is a business transaction. If they don't feel comfortable enough with you to sign on to this, all the things you're doing, besides the fact that they can send you a text and cancel this thing in writing, right? If they want to, what are you really asking for? Right? A little bit of commitment. Yes, Malvis.
There's no other paperwork. If they want to cancel that agreement, they just need to send you an email or notify.
In writing. Anything that says in writing is fine. And if a buyer wants to cancel it by text, there is no court in the world that wouldn't let them. Right? So
I
that's all they have to do. Yes, Vivian.
I have a surefire one-liner and it works every time. If I don't negotiate well for myself, how
I
well?
love Surefire. Let's hear it.
If I don't negotiate well for myself, how will I be able to negotiate well for you? Hello?
Oh, I think we lost Ryan.
That's great. I've got a bad connection again, but that's great.
There he is.
Yeah, I've got a bad connection. I'm back. Okay. Yeah. If you can't negotiate for yourself, how are you going to negotiate for someone? All right. I see you guys moving, but I can't hear anybody. But yes, Vivian, I've heard you say that before, and that is excellent. I like that. Any other questions about it? Any other questions about the form? Any other questions about how to use it?
I would say, what kind of pushback, for the people that do use it, what kind of pushback have you gotten or do you anticipate, and what do you do to overcome that?
Good question.
Anybody get pushback?
I know
All right.
personally, on my side of things, when I'm a consumer, if somebody, they lay all this out, but then they want me to sign a form, I'm going to be like, yeah, I understand you're doing it. I understand the reason for it. But as a consumer, I feel like that's just a bad idea. And I feel like a lot of people in my sphere would probably feel the same way. I understand on our side of how we can convince them to do it and why we should convince them to do it. But I know, if I walked into a car dealership and the guy was like, hey, sign this form over, I'm going to work the best for you. I'm going to do the best I can for you, do everything I can to find you what you want. I'm probably not going to do that.
I think this is a little bit different than a car deal because you're working for them and they're not even paying the commission. The seller is paying the commission. And if they're not willing to commit to your service, maybe you shouldn't be working with them.
Here's the deal, Judson. So I walk into a Honda dealership and the guy, Oscar, is my person who comes up to me, right? I don't care who it is. It's the first person who comes up to me. And he tells me, I'm going to go work for 3 hours in the back to try to find you the best deal. If you don't mind signing this form that says you're not going to go talk to Daryl, who's over there on his coffee break right now, but he's going to be over here in a minute. If you don't mind signing this form that you're going to work with me and me only, I'm going to go do 3 hours worth of work for you. And then I'm going to meet you at every single car over the next 2 weeks until we get a deal. It's not the same. So
no, and I mean, I kind of just use that as an example.
No, I know. I don't want to beat that to death, but what I do want to do is the point I want to get across is you have got to let them know, and I did not mention this, how much work goes into this. It is not as simple as running an auto search, right? There's a lot more work that goes into it. There's a lot more. How easy is it when somebody tells you they can only look at houses Saturday morning or Sunday afternoon to set up 4 houses in a row on Saturday morning and 4 in a row on Sunday afternoon? Is that easy? Absolutely not, right? You guys ever, you guys do that, I know, and it's not easy to set everything up where it works perfectly. And it's not easy to do all these things and take your Saturdays and your Sundays. And, I've got, mention your kids and what you do too. And, mention this kind of stuff, build a relationship with them. This is a two-way street, but it is mostly your way. Does every buyer buy something? Even if they don't work with another agent, does every buyer buy something? How many times do you get this phone call of, hey, man, John, thanks for showing us everything. You've been really great, but we're sorry to waste your time. This is not the time where they give you the speech about how they found something with Judson. This is about the time, or they found something on their own. This is about the time when they say, it's just not the right time for us to buy. We've decided that, I don't know, maybe they're fighting, maybe they're talking about getting divorced, maybe they're doing whatever, maybe one of them's losing their job or they're scared they're going to lose their job, but now the boss just mentioned they might get transferred to Wichita. Whatever it is, something happens and they don't buy at all, right? Happens all the time. And we put in a lot of effort for that. And so when people see you walk away from a closing table with $10,000 and they nudge each other and say, did you see Judson just made $10,000? He barely did anything. And the funny part about this business, and I give this speech when I talk about how many people get into this business, is people see you walk away with a big check and they think you didn't do anything. And the funny part is the better job you did, the less it looks like you did, right? It's these agents who fly by the seat of their pants, who can barely close a deal, who look like geniuses because they got it all together at the last minute somehow, right? Or they negotiated me 5 extensions. They were awesome, right? In reality, they just screwed up the deal 5 times. So those are the ones who look like they did a lot of work. When they work with Judson gets them to the closing table and they close, and it was no problem at all. And they're like, oh, Judson barely did anything. He only showed us 3 houses, right? It's because Judson knew what they wanted and he found them the housing. So that is what they think a realtor's life is. You ever see those memes on Facebook or something where what I do, what people think I do, and what my mom thinks I do, and what I actually do, right? So it's one of those things where people have no idea how many people you work with before you drag them across the finish line. Okay.
And I think it's an opportunity to educate the buyer, because a lot of them don't do it intentionally. You know, they need to know how much work you put into it and how much knowledge you have to be able to provide a good service. And sometimes you might not be available like that right minute that they want to see a house. And they might just call their friend to see that one house, but they're not aware of all the things that go into it. So it's just also an opportunity to educate your buyer and how things really work. Yes.
And will you do better because you've educated them now, like we talked about at the beginning, you've educated them now on how the system, on how it works. You've given them the behind the scenes look, right, at how it works. And now you've created a relationship with them by being likable and getting them to like you and you like them and all this kind of stuff. It's easier for some people than others, but you get to where, and they realize how much. Do you want to let your clients down? You guys ever want to let your clients down? No. You think they want to let you down if they like you, if they realize that you have value, if they don't think you're that used car salesman? Again, I'm not harping on Judson's analogy, but used car salesman, people, they don't care if a guy goes in and he's very used car salesman like to you, and you go back in 2 weeks and to buy that Honda that Oscar showed you the first time, but he was really, kind of creepy, and you go back and it's his day off. Do you mind, even though you had his business card, but now Pete's going to show you a car, do you mind buying it through Pete? You really don't care about Oscar, right? Because you didn't really like him anyway, and it's his day off, and then, whatever. But if they like you, they'll call you off your business card and make sure you're at work, right? If you liked the car salesman, you would use his business card and say, you know what, I did decide to buy that Honda. I'm going to come back in and see you. What are you there on Saturday? No, but he'll show up. He'll cancel what he's doing and come back on Saturday, right? Has that ever happened to you guys? You guys have anybody, a vendor like that you like to work with, and you'll go out of your way to work with them?
Oh, definitely.
Okay. So that, but guys, Judson, your question is valid. A lot of people, that is the big thing. It's mostly fear of that. It's mostly fear that you're going to get rejected right there. But if somebody's not willing to work with you, how many houses are you willing to show them before you find out they're not willing to work with you? Right?
So what happens when, like I met a couple in Lake Nona at Village Walk, and we connected, they seemed so interested. So what happens if they really weren't interested, but I pull out the little agreement that's going over it, and they really know that they're not serious or they don't want to commit, and it's kind of awkward if they don't want to sign it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you need an out?
Pardon?
So you need an out if they do that? Because you say you decide that you still want to work with them even if they won't sign it?
Well, actually, I never heard from them again. They never responded to me after that. So I'm people like that like are puzzling, that you met and they seemed really interested. And I'm just thinking, if it was one of those kind of people that you don't know, you're never going to necessarily hear from again when you're with them on the first visit, are you putting them in an awkward position by asking them to sign that?
You're putting the buyer in it. You're putting the buyer in an awkward position.
Yes, you might putting the buyer in an awkward position by asking them to sign that. If you're with one of those people that really were never serious to begin with, but you don't really know that.
Well, what did your buyers at Nona walk by?
Nothing.
What'd you lose? Let me ask you how much time did you think you saved, Tammy?
I probably spent 3 hours of my time.
Or how much do you think you saved by not working with them anymore? Or did you continue to work with them?
No. They never responded to me after that. Like but we connected. It was weird.
Okay, you asked them to sign a buyer brokerage agreement or you didn't?
No, I did not.
Okay. I thought you asked them to sign it and you didn't.
Because I've never used those. So I'm saying in that situation, going forward, if I had a couple like that seemed all interested, you connected with them, but down deep inside of them, they're like, oh, we're just kind of looking and we're not even serious. We're just going to take this person's time up. So you pull out the agreement and they're like, no, we're really not serious. And we don't really want to sign that. I mean, I guess you just go okay and leave then.
Bye.
Yeah. And I'm glad there are certain people on this call because, some people you get a feeling that you should, guys, some people you get a feeling that you should use one way, right? Tammy, did you really have that? You didn't really have that feeling with them, that they seemed serious, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Right. They seem serious. They seem like we would be working together. They said, we'll call you and we want something in Village Walk, blah, 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 blah. And then then I never really heard from them again.
Okay. So sometimes you have a feeling that you should use these with people. I'm going to suggest that you make it a habit to always use them with people because I can't tell you how many of you guys have cried to me about people who you trusted, who you showed a bunch of houses to. And in one case, somebody who's nodding really big right now, a good friend of theirs did this too. Okay. They worked with you, they dragged you out, they ran you around, and then they bought something with somebody else.
Mhm.
Okay.
That happened to me.
Yeah, well, you weren't even the one I was talking about, Malvis, but good.
But I'm open to my teammates here that it can happen to anybody. I didn't tell you, but it did happen to me, to someone close to me. And I let it go, it's fine, no problem. But sometimes family members and close friends are the worst to work with. So I have learned a couple of lessons. So I am trying to use this agreement from now on when I can, because I had that bad experience.
Well, when you said that, I don't want to pick on your words there, but you said when you can. When can you not?
Actually, never. I can every time.
No further questions, Jerome.
Tammy said it just felt. I've never used it before, and it feels weird asking someone. But as I think it's Hudson, when Hudson was talking about, how weird it would feel about, I kind of wanted to, if you get a negative responsive, kind of ask the person, okay, if you were in my shoes, would you like to run around with me and take you to see 5 houses? And then would you like me to go with another agent and buy from somebody else? And how about your gas? How about your tolls? How about your time with your family that you put aside to bring me to buy a house and then I buy from somebody else? How could that make you feel?
Wow, Malice. Okay, same energy, different words. All right, so I love the energy, but let's make that a little more friendly. And that's
professional. I got it. I understand.
How would you like it? How would you like it?
Yes. I would love to stay on this call, but my daughter has a virtual appointment with her dad to log out, Ryan.
Well, you're going to use it anyway, so I'm happy.
Tommy, I'm going to call you. I need to talk to you.
Okay. Well, yeah, we need to talk about how you're using your words. So, all right, have fun. Thank you, Mel. Love the energy, love the enthusiasm, but let's find a nicer way to say that. But that is the whole point of this thing, right? So, who makes you? Tammy, you talked about those people, and it might be an uncomfortable situation if you had to present this to them and all this stuff, and they might have walked, which they did anyway. So,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What can you blame that on? And let's talk about how you backtrack if you have somebody who you really, really, really want to work with, and they have sold you instead of you selling them because you're a weak salesperson and they're not. They have sold you on not signing it. How do you backpedal? Who do you use as the bad guy for almost everything that you do in this business that you have to be hard with people? Who do you use as the bad guy?
The broker.
Right, Carissa. Daryl's pointing at Carissa on his screen. She's not on there, he's pointing at me, but yes, use the brokerage, right? Yeah. Mean old Carissa, okay? That's who makes you get these signed, the brokerage. Who do you call if you, for some reason, you're a weaker salesperson than they are, and they get you to agree that they don't need to sign it, but you're still going to show them houses? How do you backtrack from now? My broker makes me do this. How do you go? Where do you go now?
Right. Yeah.
Where do you go?
I would say I would give them, Brian, this is George, I would tell them that if they want to see any houses, they have to sign it. If they are just kicking the tires and want to know about the neighborhood or whatever, I'd be happy to set them up an MLS search and create a personalized portal for them on the MLS that they can look at the houses as they come on the market. And if they want to see them, we have to have this in place before we'll do that.
Because George is a strong salesperson. Good, George. All right. Now pretend you're not George. Now you're weak and they're strong. What are some of you guys going to need to do to get to backpedal now if you still want to work with this person? Because some of you guys are afraid. I see it. You're afraid to ask them to sign this because you're afraid they won't sign it. And then you have to say, now you've said your broker made you do it or whatever you've said, or I only work with people who do this. And now you're a liar because you still want to show them a house. So how do you backpedal out of this? I'll give you an escape line if you'd like it. And that is, let's drive over to 123 Paradise Circle. I'll call my broker on the way and see if I can work with you guys. Okay. All right. And call my cell phone. And if I don't answer, that means you can work with them. Okay.
Brian, what I've done that has worked for me as far as getting that sign is if I have a conversation with them and they want me to send them houses, I do it. But if they call me and say, okay, I like this house or these houses and I want to see them, right before the first house, I meet them at a coffee shop, a Starbucks, whatever. I buy them coffee. And such a simple thing, people appreciate that. And after that, they're happy, like nobody has any issues with it. And it's right before seeing a house that they're interested in seeing. So they're already committed, they're already there. But right before we get there, we're gonna sign this paper. No issues at all, ever. Absolutely. And they actually appreciate that I took the time to buy them coffee, and it just shows customers, and it's on the same day that we're gonna see a house. So it's not like I'm gonna waste an appointment or my time or their time. I'm sorry. Okay.
No problem. So she's done two things there. One, she's got them right when they're about to go in somewhere. You got all these people out here that don't want to wear a mask, don't want to wear a mask, don't want to. Well, sir, you can't buy that beer if you don't have a mask on to come in. Oh, I'll put it on. Yeah, right? So you got them right at the goal line. So they're going to do anything to get across, right? Second thing, most importantly, and this is sales 101, this is what happens every time. This is happening right now. It's 11:34. It's happening right now in this area. People are taking people to lunch to earn their business. They're spending $12 on somebody's lunch, but it creates a sense of obligation. That is why salespeople take buyers from places, from companies, procurement people to lunch, right? This is why they take them golfing, and they spend $50, right? But it creates a sense of obligation, not necessarily to give them their $1 million procurement contract, but to give them a shot at it, right? Connection. All wants a shot at it, right? And to tell them, look, your bid came in at 1.3 and somebody else's came in a little bit lower. You guys think you can do a little bit better? We'll go with you, right? Just from taking them for a couple of rounds of golf.
So we can definitely work with you.
Pardon me? Somebody said something. So it creates that obligation, and that was beautifully done, Stella. You create a little bit of obligation. You got them at the 1 yard line, to use a football term. You got them at the 1 yard line. They'll do anything to cross the goal now. I mean, we're committed, right? We're in poker, they're pot committed already. They're committed. They're in the deal. Let's do it. Sure, I'll sign whatever, right? But you still want to take the time to let them know what they're signing and let them know how great you are, all the work that you're going to do for them. And because you don't want them to just sign this and have to argue about it later. But you still need to sell them on it, but they're going to sign it. They're going to sign it anyway because they're serious. Okay? Even if they're not serious.
Do they object to meeting beforehand, like they are maybe on a time crunch? And do they object to meeting you at a coffee shop prior?
I usually I usually schedule on the way something that is gonna be convenient to that specific property that they want to see.
Right.
So it's
right.
just a few minutes. It's not like gonna be an hour, max 10 minutes. You're gonna be there.
And I think it's perfectly legit also. Look, this is a big deal for them.
Yeah.
If we're going to look at houses, it's a big deal for me. I think it's legit to want to meet them beforehand, right? Well, you'd want to see their pre-qual, right? They're sending you that. They've taken the time to do that, to send you the pre-approval, right? We can meet for a few minutes. I'd love to meet you guys first before we go look at the houses. I got some stuff to go over with you, right? So I think that's perfectly reasonable. And I like the idea of course, you're going to buy them coffee and do whatever. Hopefully they didn't bring 8 kids with them. You're going to buy them, do something, right? You're going to do something for them, and then you're going to show them what you're going to do for them. Guys, if they won't sign it, I hate to tell you this. If they won't sign it,
Yeah. They're not
they're
gonna
probably not going to do business with you anyway.
All right.
Hey, Ryan, what are the best practices for ride-alongs, or if they're going to ride in your car, if they're going to ride in separately? I mean, should you offer, or just
No? The best practice nowadays is no. No, just don't do it. Are any of you guys letting people ride in your cars?
I ride.
Not you, Judson. I know you are.
I
Yeah, they don't get a choice sometimes.
always ride with them or meet them. Those are your 2 choices.
I would rather meet them. I don't want you guys getting in people's cars. Really, any of you, even Judson. I don't want you getting in people's cars. Just meet them there. They'll meet you. It's common practice now. Oh, that's what I'm going to get back to. Tammy, you had asked that question of Stella about meeting places and doing this. Guys, they don't know anything. This is how we do it.
Yeah.
This is how we do it, right? If Tammy's going to have a bunco party and I say, what do I need to do? And she says, well, you need to bring 3 bottles of wine and a jump rope. I'm not going to question. I don't have any idea how it works, right? So I'm going to say jump rope. I'm not going to say, why do I need a jump rope? I'm going to say, okay, awesome. See you there, right? Because I don't know anything about it. That's how she does it. You're the professional. You're the hostess. You know what's going on. I don't. That is how it works. Just whatever. It's how it works.
Tammy, you can always explain that there's a relationship with the seller called the listing agreement, and that the buyer brokerage agreement is a mirror of that relationship with a buyer. And you're walking into an existing relationship and you're trying to protect their interests.
It's true. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. It is true. It is really the mirror. It is really the mirror image of that. It's not as binding, of course, but it's really the mirror image of that. And you guys know this. Who do you guys like working with more, listing or buyers?
Listings all day long.
You like listing or buyers? Listings all day long. Why is that, Judson?
Because it's easy, man. I do everything on the back end through marketing and just making sure they're happy. But obviously I've got 2 jobs, so I can't tote around town 5 days in a row and all that stuff, which I gladly will for people. But listings, you kind of let the work come to you after you've done the front end work. You've done your marketing plan, got the property out there, got it all set and ready to rock and roll, and then you kind of just let the fruits of your labor come to you.
Right. Would you do a listing, even if it were legal? If it were legal to do a listing without a listing agreement, would you do a listing without a listing agreement?
No.
Then why would you do buyers? You just said listings are easier. Why would you do more work without a buyer's agreement?
If you
Right?
really believe
So-
in something, you're going to do it. If you really believe in it. And that's what we all have to just believe in it.
You guys who out there feels like you're maybe not as strong of a salesperson as you should be? Show of hands if you feel like you should be a stronger salesperson.
Hey.
Right? Then how many of you count on real estate for a living? Then what are you doing? Why aren't you taking sales classes? Why aren't you doing audio books? Why aren't you doing that stuff? Because this is it, the sales portion of this industry is huge. The bad guy just walked in the room. There she is. There she is. The bad guy I told you guys about. The evil Carissa.
We're blaming you for everything.
Hello.
Okay. Any other questions you guys have?
Have anything as far as the agreement goes. I just had a topic to bring up with the group, if that's all right.
Sure.
I'm just curious what everybody does as far as their lead generation. I've been exploring that deeper and deeper. I'm trying to expand my brand, start a team, get rid of this uniform, all that good stuff. And, you know, I've seen some real bad lead generation companies. I've seen some really good ones. I've basically taught myself Facebook advertising on my own at this point. But, you know, I'm curious as far as what some of the other out of the box things that everybody's doing, or, you know, Zillow. I know, Tammy, you mentioned you do Zillow, if it's worth it. I did Zillow when it was much cheaper, 7-8 years ago when I first got started. So I started doing that then, and it was okay. I got a couple clients out of it, nothing crazy. But, you know, I went to buy a couple zip codes the other day, and at least the zip codes I'm working in, you're spending $5,000 if you want to show up every fifth click. You know, so I'm just kind of curious what everybody else is doing besides the obvious Facebook stuff and hiring lead generation companies, which basically just do the Facebook ads for you and are extremely expensive. So yeah, I mean,
Hey Judson, do you have any past clients that you've sold past, you know, prior houses with the past, like what, 1 or 2 or 3 years? I don't know how long you've been in the business.
Yeah, I have a sphere, you know, an email list for over 300-400 people that I'm constantly.
That's where your money's at.
Yeah, and I mean that's what I've been milking for, you know, a hot minute now, and I'm trying to.
That's totally where your gold mine is. You have to keep up with those people. You have to pay attention to their birthdays, to their anniversaries, to any kind of life events they have. Every time they have a birthday, they get a card from you. They get food from you, maybe flowers if it's a girl or whatever. Guys like flowers too, actually. But you have to really pay attention to your sphere. Stop nodding your head, Ryan. Anyway, you have to really pay attention to your sphere and the prior clients that you've had over the years. That's where your gold mine is.
Yeah, no, and I 100% that. I maybe should have worded my question differently as far as what I can do to add outside reach for people if I'm trying to bring in new agents and mentor them how to do things the right way. Because, I mean, I almost didn't make it when I first got into real estate. It was a full-time gig. I had a couple of young kids, and, you know, without spending my own money and tons of it, I was giving Berkshire 50% of my business to be there. And I almost didn't make it through. It was, you know, thought about quitting, whatever the case may be. But 7, 8, 9 years later now, you know, I feel like I can mentor those people, but I want to have something, you know, some kind of outside lead gen where if it's somebody I don't want to farm out to or whatever, that I can let it trickle down and, you know,
do you have a niche neighborhood that you advertise in, that you specialize?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've got a couple neighborhoods that you know, that's where I focus the most of my business and I give my personal attention to. But like I guess just how to reach outside of my sphere, because my dad was born and raised in this area. I've been born and raised in this area. I've got very deep ties as far as the sphere goes. But to get, you know, that sphere is good enough for me.
So you're looking for new business. You're not looking
Yeah,
for
I mean, the sphere is great to provide for me and my family, and it's done so very well. But if I want to start expanding my brand, I don't want to put my sphere to other newer agents. I'd like to expand my outreach to also help these new agents that I want to mentor and things like that.
Okay. The online leads are really, really hard to work that I found out. I spend a lot of money each month on online leads through Facebook and other places. And they take a lot of nurturing. That's just how online leads are. Some of them are really quick. Very, very rarely are they really quick. And it takes a lot of money to work the online leads. You have to constantly, I hire a company actually to call my online leads, to email them, to keep up with them. And I'm still not closing most of my business comes from my sphere, my past clients. Pretty much 75 to 80% of my closings are past clients, either buying another home, upsizing, downsizing, their kids, their families. That's just where the business is. 80% of your business will come from your prior clients over the years.
No, I 100% agree with that. And I was kind of the same way. I hired an outside company that did, they got the leads, they farmed the leads, they booked appointments for you. And it just seemed like it wasn't worth what I was spending. So that's why I basically taught myself how to get those leads the same way they do. And I'm just trying to farm them out. And it's all right. I mean, you might get 1 out of every 30 or 40 leads actually maybe turns into something. But, I'm just trying to figure out just, I guess, how to grow, outside of my sphere.
Judson, you're in uniform.
Exactly.
Brotherhood of strong people, not only law enforcement officers, but court officers like bailiffs, corrections officers. All of you are really in the same family.
Oh, yeah, of course.
You could be helping. That's who I would be pitching right now if I was you. I'd reach out to my brotherhood because you can be of service to them and they need it as much as anybody does.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And that,
Connect a home buyers course, like all these people that you know in your business, like she just said, and you could, send out a flyer and hold a home buyers course for all these people that you don't really know, and something like that. You could call on fire stations as well, or find out a loan program for like the first responders.
oh, yeah, Suncoast Credit Union, they have a first responder program, and
Right.
it's 0 down, 0 PMI. And so,
Right. So make a flyer and have your people go take them to like fire stations and different, first responder places. Let them work some of that business as well, other than you just paying to bring it to them,
mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely a good idea.
Yeah. Do all your coworkers know about the loan that you just said?
Oh yeah, I'm constantly putting flyers out in our our read offs, and we have an online bulletin board that I post on every week, and put my list. I've done a lot of business with guys and girls that I work with, and friends, family, referrals from them. So it's definitely a fruitful market to tap into for sure. It's tough because the market's gone so crazy around here that most people that are in this line of business are almost getting pushed out, just because of the income's not catching up with the the housing and everything. So that's kind of a challenge we've been running into around here.
Arcoma Lambert is running a lead generation program. It's kind of out of the box lead generation. She works for Joel Siegel's title company. If I can get your contact information, I'll send you that. She's a Central Florida Realty Investment Group member. And she is kind of the queen of social media marketing. And if you're looking for green leads, especially to give to your team as you build that up, that would be one of the ways I'd go about it. The other thing is you're close to McDill, right? And CENTCOM?
Yes. Yep.
Have you got your MRP credential? Military Relocation Professional?
I just I had a company that I've been talking to now for a couple months that they're going to put me as part of their that's my phone number for anybody who wants it if you want to stay in contact. But yeah, I'm about to do a partnership with one of the military relocation companies. So that's
we're not talking about those particular companies, because you got to pay for this. This is a NAR certification, and it will put you in contact with all of the military relocation professionals in the nation. It's a NAR database, and I've had business with people in Chicago. People have referred people from Wesley Chapel down to me. So it is a NAR certification, and Florida, the ORA anyway, has another certification called the Florida Military Specialist, FMS, and you have to have MRP to have that. So if you, I don't know if you have military background with your law enforcement, but that's a natural affinity group, if you will. And so those two certifications will do. The Florida Military Specialist, I'm not found that to be of any value, but the Military Relocation Professional, the MRP certification has worked for me. And I'm not really looking to do anything other than help I do a lot of things with various military groups as a veteran myself. So
Okay.
that's about the only green buyers I want is MRP, because I know they're going to come, they're going to buy quick. And my problem is I'm between Patrick and McDill, so I don't really have any bases that are close enough for me to make that a full-time job. You're a
And
lot
you said that's the NAR MRP?
Yeah, it's an MRP program. I got mine in Virginia, of all places, because that gave me an excuse to go travel. So
there you go.
And right off that trip, that was so anyway, it's good CE. It's good to have. And once you get yourself established, now there are a lot of MRPs in the Tampa area, but
I'm sure.
But it is with your law enforcement credentials. When I welcome a new member to the group, even if they're another Orlando agent, I always refer, my last sentence in that is USAF veteran. So I'm a U.S. Air Force veteran, and that will get me more calls. There's probably 2 or 3 of us in Orlando area. Ernie over in Kissimmee is another guy, but and he is a VAR rep, a VA rep. He's in that group. He's trying to get me into it. It's that, but it's outside your affinity group. If you use that as a way to expand your reach beyond the local law enforcement group, that would be a way. That the Arcoma, I'm almost tempted to do that, but I'm really not in the market to look for green buyers. Most of my green buyers come from investors. If I have an investment property to sell, typically it's going to be something that a first-time buyer wants to buy. And so I end up with very seasoned investors and brand new home buyers as a result of that.
Awesome. Yeah, I already got it pulled up on the computer. I'm definitely going to look into that. I appreciate it.
Okay. Hope that works.
That would be, like you said, that would be a perfect way to tie myself in with that community. Have a little bit of a similar background. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Those are great ideas, George.
I was trying to talk. I had myself muted. I might have told you guys some of you guys a story before from a couple of years ago. There's a lady up in I don't know which base it is, up in the Panhandle. One of the bases up there though, and she is she's the realtor who has made herself the queen of this. Okay, of relocation, military relocations. She owned a like a quadplex near the base, and she would let people stay there for free, coming and going for relocations in exchange for her being their realtor. So it was a great idea, but she became the realtor for people relocating in and out of this base. It was a pretty cool sell. I don't know that it was for free. It was really cheap or whatever. She gave them a great deal, place to stay right next to the base. And then she was their realtor. So that's kind of a cool thing to do, a niche kind of thing to get into. Any other questions or anything to comment about today?
Judson, if you would do that and buy maybe a duplex or a triplex, it would give you great write-offs too. It would help your income plus give you really good write-offs. I'm all for income properties.
That's not just for Judson. Any of you guys can do that, and it doesn't have to be military. It can be for Siemens or Lockheed or whatever too. So think about that, the kind of ways that you can get into some of these things, right? Or some of you down in Brevard, it could be Harris or whatever, whoever's doing whatever, okay? Any other questions? Comments? You guys have been spectacular today. I appreciate all of your input. If you guys have any questions or anything else, let me know. If you have something private, you can text me or email me or call me. Please don't text, email or call. And I will look forward to seeing you guys again next week.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks.
All right, guys. Great job, everybody.